Yes, welcome to Bitter Reality Brewing. Yes, Yeast Man has brought us some really cool yeasts. Well, really, Yeast Man, if you don't know who Yeast Man is, you need to look at White Labs. Yeast Man is part of White Labs, and yeah, that's why he's sporing off another yeast here. I'm gonna set him aside so he doesn't get dirty, because eventually I'll end up giving him away down the road. But needless to say, we're gonna do a yeast experiment. Today, we're not really gonna do the experiment. Today, we're just gonna brew the beer, but it's great to know about the yeast and know about the beer. And as usual, before we jump into everything, don't forget, like, subscribe, keep sharing, definitely appreciate the support. So what are we doing? Well, we've got a yeast experiment. And before I tell you about the yeast, because one's a brand new yeast that you may never have heard of, or maybe you just heard of it, and that's what we're testing. So we're gonna do an international pale lager, and I'm gonna draw outside the lines. I'm just using that as my base recipe. Other than drinking my own beer, I've been having a few beers outside that are really nice and creative from some local breweries and some not so local. So I've decided, you know what? I'm craving certain characters, certain flavors, and I'm gonna do one myself. So first of all, what and why are we doing the yeast? Well, White Labs sent me WLP 808, which is called Mythical Hammer Lager Yeast Blend. To double check so I didn't mess it up, but yeah, Mythical Hammer Lager Yeast Blend. It is supposed to be very clean. It is a lager yeast. It's supposed to give a little bit of citra notes and aromas towards the end, but you've only brewed with it so many times, and there's like, tell us what you think. So I've decided I'm gonna brew several different beers, and a couple of them are gonna be split batches. And those split batches, I'm gonna pitch right here, 808 Mythical Hammer Lager Yeast. And it's only appropriate that I compare it to another White Labs yeast. So I went out and I got Czech Lager Yeast, White Labs 802. The full name, I'm gonna put it up there because I watched 5 different people that supposedly are from the Czech Republic pronounce this. 3 sounded kind of similar, 2, maybe it's a different dialect. It just didn't even sound the same. I must say, the Europeans are quiet people, and it's hard to hear them and understand them when you're trying to get a pronunciation. Us Americans, or most people in the US, we are loud, at least compared to them, we're loud. So yeah, this is what we're comparing. This is gonna be a part 2 video when you get to see and compare the differences between these yeasts. We're really looking to showcase, yes, the Mythical Hammer, but you need a base to compare it to. So yeah, it's a good comparison, I figure. We're going with something that is going to be very light. It's gonna have some flavor. It's gonna have lots of flavor. And the hops are gonna be mild, but it's still gonna have some hops. So let me go into the recipe and we'll get brewing. I had to turn the anvil off. The anvil was getting a little loud, but we're up to temp. I've got my brewing salts. I've got everything milled. We're ready to go. So let me go over the recipe. So let's set that aside. First of all, International Pale Lager. It's not a huge grain bill, but it's also not that small. We're going for a 6-gallon batch, 6.15 to be exact. The reason is I want to split it into 2 3-gallon batches and have a little, left over there to make sure I get a full 6 gallons and 3 gallons for each batch. Each 3-gallon batch will have a different yeast pitched on it, which I've already got a bunch of yeast starters going. And yeah, so we're all good there. And when you take that Mythical Hammer yeast and you pour it out, it is like peanut butter. It comes out thick, just like White Lab 001 Chico. Yeah, that stuff's pretty thick usually too. So we got 9 pounds Pilsner malt, which is avant-garde if you really need to know, but 1 pound Vienna malt, 12 ounces of rye malt. Yes, that's where I'm coloring outside the lines. I had a rye lager recently and it was really good. So I've decided I want a rye lager, just not heavy on the rye. So 9 pounds Pilsner, 1 pound Vienna malt, 12 ounces of rye malt, 6 ounces of Carapils, 4 ounces of acid malt, nice, yeah. And 4 ounces of Munich to kind of give it a little color, a little hint of taste as far as like the maltiness. And then Tettnang, if I'm saying that correctly, which I'm pretty sure I am, at 4.6 alpha. That's gonna be a 0.80 of an ounce. And that addition will be at 60 minutes. I kind of screwed up. I was gonna do a 60-minute boil and I realized I accounted my water for a 90-minute boil with the steam condenser. So we're gonna do a 90-minute boil. Yeah, whatever, an extra 30 minutes, not a big deal. Then in the last 10 minutes, and this, I don't feel like it's gonna conflict from what I read with that yeast, but we're gonna drop 2 ounces of Saz. That's gonna give us a little bit of herbal and some nice spice to it. That way, if I'm getting any citrus notes or any kind of citrus aromas from that yeast, it's gonna complement really nice, very nice. I'm shooting only for a 5% ABV, estimating a 72% efficiency. I know some of you are like, why are you estimating so low on the efficiency? Well, 2 reasons. 1, doing 6 gallons instead of 5. 2, my efficiencies on this thing last round was not up to par. I was around 69% and it was a little stressful. So I made some changes, I'm ready, I'm prepared. And our bitterness, IBUs, is estimated at 23.5. So that's really not that strong, but that's right on the high side for an international pale lager. I wasn't looking to color outside the lines with the exception of the rye. The rye is where I decided to color outside the lines, and it's not unheard of, it's just not the norm. So got the brewing salts. I'll put the brewing salts up on the screen so you can see what I'm adding, and I'll stir those in here in a second. Yay! Whenever I add the brewing salts here and quickly add it, they don't stick. That is a huge bonus. Another thing, this is specifically for Anvil users. This is the newer one, which has the small 1.5 inch perforated. And if you can see in there, I added the small batch adapter. Supposedly it wouldn't fit because of these little bumps, but actually it sits right above them and it fits perfectly, and we're gonna try the small batch adapter today. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna stir this up, kick it back on, and we'll get mashed in. Okay, I'm gonna speed this up. We're gonna go ahead and get mashed in. We're at 150 degrees Fahrenheit for our mash temp, and we're gonna be here for 75 minutes before we ramp it up to 168 for 10 minutes. And then of course, sparge out with 1 gallon at 170 Fahrenheit. Okay, we're gonna let that sit for 10 minutes while I get the recirculation kit all connected and running and rocking and rolling. And we'll be there for 75 minutes. Okay, as you can see, we're at 151. We're set for 150. I've got the power down to 45%, which is where I had to do it last time for the mash. It'll come back down to 150, we'll be good. And we're gonna be there for 75 minutes. Then we'll kick it up to 168. We'll be there for 10 minutes. And then, like I said, we'll sparge, mash out. Okay, so we just hit the 75 minutes. I'm gonna kick it up to 168. Once we get there, we'll be there for 10 minutes. Okay, we're good. Time to pull the grain basket out. I'm gonna get this off, get it going. I got a gallon of sparge water heating up, so we should be good. Okay, here we go. And if you haven't noticed, yeah, I'm wearing my White Lab shirt too. Mentioned it before, but on the Anvil, when you put the grain basket in, make sure you know where the feet are located, so when you pick it up, you know where you're going. Makes life a lot easier. Okay, we're gonna let that drip for a little while. I'm gonna get the sparge water here shortly, and we'll sparge and let that drip for a little while, and then we'll kick it up to a boil. And we're gonna use the steam condenser. So, and it'll be a 90-minute boil because I screwed up and miscalculated my water, but it's all good. Okay, we're just over 200 degrees Fahrenheit. I've decided I'm gonna have the steam condenser going, but just in case, I'm gonna put it on as soon as I break and I lower the power a little bit. I forgot I had rye in here. I know it's not very much, but I'm rubbing the bottom, make sure nothing's sticking, and just making sure we have a nice clean break. Still taking a bit, but we'll be there very shortly. Just to be safe, I'm putting 2 drips of defoamer in here. 1, 2, there we go. Just doesn't seem to want to break easy, so. Seem to have that problem when I'm brewing with rye. I wonder if that has any impact. Okay, that better have broke it. There we go, beautiful break. And we are good. Okay, before I put the lid on, I'm gonna drop the power to 60%. I'll probably have to bring it down to 50. Oh, looking beautiful. Looking beautiful. Once that comes down to 60, it's doing good. I'm gonna put the recirculation back on just to get some of the what's in the tube, you know, boiled. Oh yeah, that looks pretty. And we'll go ahead and start our timer since we're definitely on the boil. Okay, so we'll be at a boil for an hour and a half, but we'll only be here for 30 minutes before our first hop addition, which is the Tatang 0.8 of an ounce. I'll drop that in there, and then we don't have another hop addition until the last 10 minutes. Okay, that's our first hop addition at 60 minutes, 30 minutes in. Clear, there we go. It's Tatang, or T-E-T-T-N-A-N-G, 4.6% alpha, 0.80 of an ounce. And you know what I did? I looked up there and I'm like, yeah, I ain't touching that. I'll lift this up, drop that in, make sure it's in the liquid. Look at all that steam. Hence the word steam condenser. And we're just gonna wrap it around there a little bit. So when I lift it up again, I'll be fine. And another little trick, if you're using hop baskets like I'm doing, or hop bags, use a second one for your next hop addition. That way you don't have to fight to get it into the little hole and burn yourself. So we're good. We're here for another 60 minutes, or technically 50, before we have an additional hop addition. We have our Whirlflock tablet, our yeast nutrient, and then in the last 5 minutes, we'll get ready and prepare to cool it down. And when we hit the 0 hour, we'll chill it. So, okay, be here for another 60 minutes. Okay, that's the 10-minute addition. So I'm gonna go ahead, take the steam condenser off. Kill the alarm. Still got 10 minutes, or a little bit more, 9.5. I'm dropping the Whirlflock tablet in. Got 2 ounces of SAS, which I think is at like something high, like 5.2% US SAS. That's pretty high. Higher than I've ever seen. Why do I dip it? I want to make sure I get it completely saturated. And we're going to add a teaspoon of yeast nutrient, just to be safe. Probably isn't necessary, but always like to err on the side of safety. There we go. Okay, we'll be here for 10 minutes. And in about 5, I'll take my jaded Scilla, drop it in, make sure it's nice and sterile, although I'm gonna rinse it off first. It's just something I do. I spray it down with Star Sand, give it a second, rinse it off, then I drop it in. So I need to get busy on that. Okay, we'll be here for a short bit. That's it, done boiling. So I'm gonna turn off the temp, kick the cold water on. Woo, that hose is warm. It's been sitting there having steam go through it. Yeah, I need to kick that on quick. Okay, it's cooling down really fast. I'm gonna get it cooled down. You hear the water running. Once we get everything cooled down, I got to get these hop bags out, get that taken care of. I'm gonna turn right around and we're gonna move it to 2 fermenters. That's right, 2 3-gallon batches. And we'll get a reading. Yep, that's right, no G. And we'll pitch the yeasts, plural, 2 yeasts. And we'll get them fermenting. Okay, time to make the donuts. Oh, I'm sorry. No, time to pitch the yeast. Yeah, so we had a good day. It was a long day, but I got started a little late, not a big deal. I don't know what it is about this bad boy, but just not hitting the efficiencies I'm used to. But needless to say, I did hit what I expected, which was 72% brew house efficiency, which I believe is around 75.9 mash efficiency estimated. So we're gonna call this the Czech and this the Mythical hammer. I'm gonna put some green painter's tape and write it on it with a Sharpie so I know which one's which. I have already marked them with tilt hydrometers. For some reason, my tilt hydrometers are getting way out of range. So this one's like saying it's really high, and this one's like crazy high. But when they come down to the final gravity, they'll both end up at the correct final gravity. So I'm okay, I calibrated for the final gravity, we're good. And yeah, I already have the tilt hydrometers and they're already logged, so I know exactly which one's which, not a big deal. No, I'm not fermenting under pressure, not to mention these are for monsters. So first thing first, yeah, I put Clarity Firm in there. Don't know if I have a gluten intolerance, but you know, I can play it safe, and I like to give out my beer to people who maybe normally couldn't drink it. So here we go. Here's one. Turn around, and we'll grab the next one. I've already chilled these down with my glycol chiller down to about 62 degrees Fahrenheit. The Czech one is, I think, 50 to 55 Fahrenheit, and the Mythical hammer, I believe, goes 50 to 64. So I'm going to start them both at around 62. I'll bring this one up, or sorry, I'm going to start them both at 62, yeah, because that's when I'm pitching the yeast at 62. But I'll put this one at 52, I'll bring it down, and then let it come up to around 54 degrees towards the end of fermentation. This one, I'm going to start at 52. I'm probably going to bring it up to as high as 62 Fahrenheit. I really want to like ease it in and then, you know, kind of bring out any aromas I can towards the end. So that's sealed up. Okay. And I know if Devin's watching, he's going, don't do this. Yeah. This is home brewing. We can sniff the yeast. Very neutral, very pasty kind of neutral. I can't really notice much on the Czech yeast, but going over here to Mythical Hammer, I took a sniff a little earlier today while it was running the starter, and yeah, I would agree with what they're saying for the final fermentation. I'm not going to say it's super clean, it's nice and clean, but it does have citrus, and there's one particular fruit that I cannot put my nose on, quite literally. But yeah, there is a fruit. There's something fruity over there. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to pitch the Czech yeast. I put a magnet on here so I don't end up taking the stir bar in there, you know what I'm saying? So we're going to take this up. This is fun. And now we're going to take it all the way up. We'll put it in the pot. The pot is super clean. I already cleaned it just a minute ago. There we go. That was the magnet I was using. Snapped off. It's all good. Okay, so there we go. And although these were pretty clean, I cleaned a little bit out of them just before we moved the beer to them, or the wort. Sorry, we don't make beer. Yeast makes beer. We make wort. I can wipe some of that off, splashing myself. I think it's just glycol and water from here, but that's okay. Okay, we're gonna move over here and get this bad boy done. And I didn't mention that our original gravity is 1.049. So if we hit what it expects with the Czech lager yeast, because that's what I have to put into Beersmith, we should end up right around 5%. So we'll see. We'll either end up right at 5, maybe a little higher, I don't know. But looking for a nice 5% drinkable, sessionable. Yeah, in a rye, it'd be sweet. And if we get a little citrus over here, I will actually love that. That'll be really nice. So we're gonna take this, I'm gonna move my little pot over here. So I don't have to drip everywhere. Hopefully I don't spill too much there. Okay, here we go. Mythical hammer, 808, I believe so. Double check. Yep. It's gonna bother me not knowing what that citrus is. I wanna say it's probably two different citrus. Probably a little bit of orange and something else going on. Maybe lemon. Now I'm trying to fight a sneeze. Please excuse me if I sneeze. Rinse those out. Let's get this bad boy in there. Okay, I'm gonna get these connected back to the glycol system, covered with nice little jackets that keep them insulated and in the dark, because we don't want light on them. And we're gonna get things fermenting. And once we get it done and we move on from there, we'll of course get it into the keg. And I may have a possible way of transferring these a little smoother so I don't have to worry about it too. But yeah, so don't forget to check out video 2. Video 2 will follow this one, and it'll be the taste testing, which you'll definitely want to check out. So again, don't forget, like, subscribe, keep sharing. I definitely appreciate it. I'm having a nice grapefruit wit beer. Yeah, it's a wit beer, but with grapefruit, ruby red. And I'm gonna tell you, it's been in the carbonation in the keg for 2 weeks, and it is finally really matured, and it is amazing. It is amazing. I had some concerns, but I'm really loving it. So cheers. Thank you again for joining us here at Budejovice Brewing.